cast their ballots?
I think the images that we've all seen, you know what I'm saying, for decades in this country, if not centuries in this country, we've seen black people oppressed. We've seen black people attacked. So every time you look back and you see those old black and white images of people of color being attacked by dogs and people of color being sprayed with hoses, that's what they were fighting for. Back then, they were just fighting
Yeah.
for a chance to vote. People like Martin Luther King Jr., people like Malcolm X, these people died to help us um, be in a position to have the power that we have now, which is to be able to cast a vote and about the people that have controls over our lives. So, I mean, if you in your own community need a reason to
Hmm.
vote, look at a person like George Floyd. If the people in your city are not open to police reform, are not open to having a conversation about defunding the police, are not open to issues concerning economic equality, judicial equality, and racial equality, right? If they're scared to say Black Lives Matter, you have the power to put people in those positions who do believe that Black Lives Matter, who do believe in
Hmm.
racial equality, economic equality, judicial equality,
That's right.
right?
That's
Who
right.
see us as human beings. And if the people in your community don't feel that way, vote them out. It's that simple. It's just vote them out. We don't have enough time to sit around and hope that people change their minds.
Yeah, Bumpy, you point out something so important. We have the power, and that is in our vote, and that is with our voice, and that's how we use our voice. I think of where we are right now. People say this is a particular moment, but it is a movement, not just a moment, it is a movement. Why, in your opinion, was it George Floyd's death? Why was that the chosen brutality for people to say, oh my God, black people are still oppressed in this country, and it is not fair?
I think it's twofold, Carrie. In so many different encounters with between people of color and the police, there simply is no proof of what happened in the interaction.
Mm,
And so what happens is in a court of law, it tends to lean towards the policeman's point of view, right? In this case, we saw very clearly what happened. I think the other thing is due to the fact that everyone was at home, basically during this time period in relation to the coronavirus. You couldn't avoid it, right? It was on every television station, it was on every
absolutely.
social media platform. Everywhere you turn, you were constantly hit upside the head with this message. You see in the interaction that this man did nothing to deserve what happened.
That's right. So well said, because if you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't worth it, and he didn't have to lose his life. I think that you touched on something that a lot of people talk about, and that is now defunding the police. That has been such a huge conversation, but there's so many misconceptions around defunding and dismantling. If you will, educate the audience.
All right, so most people, when they hear the term defund the police, they tend to think of, oh, they're going to take away our police department. Nothing could be further from the point. Defunding the police means that in certain communities, even Houston, take for example, we had over $1 billion allocated to our police force. Now, what is that money being used for? Some of that money tends to be allocated towards riot shields, right? Pepper spray, right? That kind of thing. That's only used against the people that fund this budget, right? So why would the police with the means to oppress them? If the police are concerned about the situations in certain
Yeah.
communities with a higher crime rate, well, higher crime rates tend to happen in communities where there's not there's not employment opportunities, right? There's not a lot of social services, and people are going to do what they need to do to take care of
For
themselves
sure.
and their families. When the community has more opportunities for employment, more opportunities for upward mobility, then they tend to be a less of a strain on the government. They tend to have a lower crime rate, and because of that, we'll have less need for the police in those communities.
You are passionate about so many different things in terms of making sure that we are holding our leaders accountable. Talk to me about some of the other projects that you're working on.
Well, right now, obviously, being a part of More Than a Vote is essential. We're dealing with primaries in this country right now, and we just want to educate people. We want to inform people because people are tired, they're angry, they're concerned, and they want information and they want action. And so we want to make sure that we give them the right information and lead them in the right direction. And we thank the people that do not look like us for standing with us right now because it's very
Amen.
important that people who aren't black be involved because if black people could have gotten rid of racism, we would have done it hundreds of years ago. And so I'm trying to use my voice and my platform just to let people know that if they feel like I do, there's a number of places they can go to enact change in their community. People need to know about how their city council runs. They need to know that they have the ability to speak when city council meets, to let them know that that's not the way that they feel their city needs to be run. Those are not the places that they feel the money of their
And Bud,
community needs to be allocated.
and Bubby, even a step further, they can run for office in their local community. They can run for positions. Like people act like they leave it up to somebody else. If you're upset, it's not hard to get on the school board. It's not hard to be a part of the city council. It really isn't. And depending on how small your town is, you could be a mayor. It's the power is with the people, and we need to just know that that's happening.
Absolutely. And it's always been with the people. If you look at Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, right? And the system of oppression that led to her son's death. And so what did she do? She ran for city council and she was elected to
Yeah.
city council. Our own former president, 44, Barack Obama, right, started in the community as an activist, ran for an elected position, became senator, ran for another elected position, and became president of the United
Mm-hmm.
States. So don't think that
Mm-hmm.
you can't make a difference. You know what I'm saying? You don't need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of power. Your voice is enough to make a difference.
Amen. I feel like I need to go out and run for something. You gave me a rousing speech there, sir. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this. When I talk to my brothers, I have to ask you, as a black man, how are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm good. I'm good. I have a very strong relationship with God, so prayer definitely works for me. I have children and grandchildren who are watching me, who are encouraged by what I do, and they're proud of me right now, and that's really what matters. The change starts at home. So as long as you have a support system that believes in what you're doing and supports you in what you're doing, you have everything you need to go out there and fight the good fight. And for those that don't, there's a community of people here to help you. So you can go to places like morethanavote.org. There are many different places that will encourage you, inform you, and they will put you with groups of people that feel like you, that are ready to take action. So no one has to go about this alone if they want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. We're stronger together. People have been saying it, but that has much more meaning now that we are in our movement, not just this moment. Bumby, it has been an education, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Keep fighting the good fight.
Keep up the good fight.
Yeah, la la.
So our next guest, I have to admit, I'm a fan, but there are so many different people that we could talk to, and I thought it was so imperative that we speak with her. You know her as Molly on the huge, successful show Insecure, HBO's Insecure. She also has a comedy special highlighting her Nigerian roots, and she's an amazing podcaster. Let's welcome in Yvonne Orji, everyone. You have such a beautiful way of making things funny, giving us our medicine with some candy, right? The humor and the
Yeah.
healing. You bring all of that to your space. And right now, I'm so broken and so upset. If it's not social injustice, it's the pandemic, it's depression, it's unemployment. The list goes on and on. How are you doing, quite frankly?
I am I'm rediscovering self in a way I that is hard but necessary, that will lead to ultimate joy. I know it sounds like a lot, but no, I think I personally think that God put all of us on a global timeout. Like we just, America hasn't done as good as other people when it comes to timeouts, because everyone else is out playing at recess, and we're still in the principal's office hoping and wishing we can come out. But I think that if we settle into the timeout and really learn the lesson that we're supposed to learn from this season, I think we'll emerge better. We'll learn how to play well with others in more ways than one. And
Mm.
so personally for me, I'm taking this time to learn me in a new way. I feel like I'm being ushered into a new season, and I'm getting still.
You know what? And I think that's what everybody is saying about 2020. It's demanding that we be better. And you said it's a global timeout. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's like everyone sit down, be humble, to quote the great prophet Kendrick Lamar. Uh, but like, no, seriously, sit down and let's reevaluate some things. Let us unearth and shake up the things that we have been trying to hide within ourselves, within our nation. I think America is going through an unraveling right now, a much needed, a much necessary one. And I think all eyes on us, right? There is no, oh, I was on the subway for an hour, so I didn't miss that thing that happened. No, everybody was home. Everybody, was watching when George Floyd died, and everybody, no one could hide it. Everyone was watching when Amy Cooper called the cops. Like, this is a time where it's like, oh, we can't pretend it away. We can't excuse it away. No, 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 no. It's a global timeout. Sit down, watch, and let's learn. And globally, it's like, hey, we were going business as usual, but it ain't usual no more. Like that.
Yeah.
That's that's old. Anytime change occurs, it's very uncomfortable. And so right now we're sitting with we're getting we're getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
The minorities, we've been comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that to me explains just the existence for whatever we want to do, how we break into our careers, how we live our lives, how we find ourselves one of the few or one of the first. And that's a lonely road. When you look at, and when you talk about this global timeout, everybody had to pay attention to Amy Cooper, everyone had to pay attention to George Floyd. How is that helping us as a people, as a country, during our global timeout?
I think, well, one, we're not minorities, Carrie. You already know it. It's like these labels that they put on us. It's
Yeah.
like the same way of saying like black on black violence. Also, there's no white on white violence. It's branding,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's all
Yeah,
branding.
you're right. You're
It's
right.
like white people kill white people every single day. So no, there is no black on black violence. And if you say black on black violence, well then let's brand white on white violence. Like I watch
Mhm.
Investigation Discovery. Ain't too many of us being featured. so, I just even like but to answer your question, what does that do? I think what everyone expected is what has happened in the past when the world was still open, right? In that, okay, you had everyone from Trayvon Martin to Castillo to Sandra Bland. You had all of these lives lost, and black people made some noise. We rioted, we got out in the streets, we started the Black Lives Matter movement, all of those things. And then white people kind of just like, oh, let's give them something. And then it's just like, is it over? It's like Oscars so black. Okay, okay, good. We gave some Oscars. Are we good now? Like, are we even?
Mhm.
And it's now it's just
Mhm.
like, oh no, 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 no. This is not about like a band-aid. It's like, yo, we might have to amputate the leg a little bit, but it's all right because we're gonna by amputating the leg, we're gonna save the body.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's happening now. Like America is realizing like, oh, black people aren't just making a little bit of noise. Like the protests are still out, the conversations are still being had, the change is still being demanded, and I think they're seeing, oh, this is not going no way, and no, it's not, because we need systematic change.
What a beautiful way to explore what is happening and describe our country. We might have to amputate the leg, but that's to save the body. That's what's happening right now. That's beautiful, Yvonne. And to that end, I have to ask you this, because the way that we do that, we use our voice. And our voice right now in this world, in this country, is our vote. And everyone talks about voting and how important it is, but I feel like more than ever we understand that it's not just about voting every 4 years for the man in office. It's about your local elections. It's about the mayor. It is about the district attorney, the people who have the power to bring charges against police if police brutality is an issue in your community. If you care about your school district, you can run for the school board. I ask this of you, right? Your parents are from Nigeria. You are Nigerian. You talk about that very lovingly. What does voting mean for you?
I think voting is power. I remember, I became a naturalized citizen back in the 90s when, because I was still a minor, my mom naturalized, and so we were able to do it under her. And just even that power of like, we are American citizens and all the access that we have by being citizens, one of those accesses and those access to power being voting, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because not only do we have the opportunity to be in this country, but now we can be of the country. We can be of the systems. We can be of the rules. We can be of what it actually affords. But I think going back to your earlier comment about just the setup of systems, I think we are done a disservice. Either it's schools or whatever it is, and I'm not putting teachers on blast. I think teachers do a phenomenal job, but for some reason, we do not, and give them all the raises. I know too many parents who are like, I might, this child of mine, I do love them, but hey, who, where can I drop them off? And I do think that there is a disservice done because, again, when we talk about them, to your point, we talk about every 4 years. It's important to vote for the presidency. We don't realize, like, oh, snap, we actually can vote about, like, how much our libraries get. It's like small things like that, but they make a big difference.
When you think of voter suppression in this country, what does it look like for you?
It's the systems. When we talk about voter suppression, we also talk about systematic racism, right? It's all the systems that set up, and we've normalized. okay, maybe your job will give you a half day, or maybe, you'll be able to get this luxury. It shouldn't be a luxury. It should be built into the system. It should be built into the fabric of how we vote. But maybe you'll be able to get this luxury in order to enable you to go vote. Think about everything disenfranchised.
Hello. I mean, I went to the school of Diddy. You know what I'm saying? Hashtag, Harlem shaking it right now. We can't stop, won't stop. And I think that's our motto. We can't stop voting and we won't stop voting. We can't stop marching and we won't stop marching. We can't stop thriving and we won't stop thriving.
To that end, because you led me directly there, I've been asking everyone who's appeared on this platform, what does activism look like? And I feel like back in the day, we had an idea. Yes, it is marching. Yes, it
Yeah.
is protesting. Yes, it is speaking out against things that we feel are not right or unjust. But talk to me about what activism looks like for Yvonne Orji.
Listen, activism, I think the beauty of activism is that it has many faces, right? You're going to have the people on the front lines. Like, you know what? Martin Luther King marched, but there were a lot of women who were in the homes like, hey, BT Dubs, when they come back, this is how we support all the people who are marching on the front lines. And we're going to be here doing what we know to do best here. And you know what? Somebody needs to bail them out of jail so now we need to be in the community, getting money or whatever it is. So it's like everybody has a position to play. And so play your position like a shortstop, bruh. So whoever you are and whatever you do, play your position. So activism could look like, you know what? I'm not the one that's built to be on the front line, but you know what? My pockets go deep, so I'm gonna support the people on the front line. I'm a comedian. Black joy is a form of activism.
There's always a call for entertainers or celebrities that have the platform to do something. Why aren't you speaking out? I'm not a believer in thinking that it's mandatory. Like you said, everyone can be an activist and be activated in different ways. But talk to me about the connection. Talk to me about the marginalization in your world and how you feel like it even inspires you to say more and use your platform to do more.
Beneath the surface of what we do, like Niecy Nash says, it's the the who, right? The who is the person who's going to be like, hey, let me call this out. Either blind racism in terms of overt racism, in terms of ways that we can be better, in terms of ways that we can actually be more uplifting to the community that you may not even realize that you're serving.
Before I let you go, talk to me about the urgency, in your opinion, for people to vote, our people to get out and vote this coming election.
Yeah, I mean, guys, 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 if you think you're tired now, I'm telling you right now, we cannot take this sitting down. We can't take this jokingly. I understand that it may be hard to figure out who to vote for, But at the end of the day, we got to vote for our families. We got to vote for our legacies. We got to vote for continued progress. We have to vote for upward mobility. We have to vote for quality in a way that is long lasting. And if we succeed about the whole, this is the time. This is not the time to give up. This is not the time to pretend a way that we haven't made progress. We have. There's still much more to be done. And you know what? We might have to get to a point where we pass the baton to our children and our children's children, but we still have work to do now for that generation.
Von Orgy, you are everything. You are Molly, but you are not Molly. But I love you so much as Molly on HBO's Insecure. You are an amazing podcaster, Jesus and Joloff. Shout out to Lovey. And then we also have movies. Like you, the world, you're a model, a cover model. Also, wait, don't let me forget your hugely successful stand up comedy special on HBO. Girl, you doing it all. And I am so grateful. You're truly the dream, not just the American dream. You're the black girl, brown girl, do it all dream, the immigrant dream, everything. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. I really, really know my heart. Yvonne Orji, ladies and gentlemen, nothing but the best and excellence personified. Thank you so much, my friend. It's in terms of political unrest and social injustice. We've seen so much happen in that city, and we've also seen so much come from that city, including one of our very own founding fathers of the civil rights movement, and that's Martin Luther King Jr. But right now, we want to welcome in someone who has used his platform to talk about voting, to talk about racial injustice, and how he's trying to help. Atlanta's very own Russ joins us now on We the People. Russ, I'm not going to fan out and tell you what some of my favorite songs were that I listened to repeat on yours. We're going to get to the topic at hand. So we got to talk about, recently you did an interview where you shared your outlook on culture and music. And you also were very candid about the fact that you have a privilege and that it's necessary for you to give back. Tell everybody about what that means.
As like, it's very obvious, I'm white and I'm in Black culture and I'm benefiting financially off of it. So I feel like if you're a white person financially benefiting off of Black culture, you have to put finances back into Black culture. It's just that simple. The screenshots with your feelings, it just comes off like fake empathy, because it comes off very dismissive and very oh, that sucks for y'all, but anyway, back to what I was doing.
Have you felt that way always, or is it now because of the time of where we are in this country?
I've always had the feeling. I think now it's just obviously elevated. It's a new level, and there's new, it's to the point now where you can't. First of all, you can't not say anything. Second of all, though, I just think saying something isn't enough anymore. I think if you have the ability to put money back into a culture that you're financially benefiting from, you have the ability to, you should.
It's interesting that you talk about it in that way, because some people do believe that silence is the best way to go, because it's hard to talk race, especially if you're white and you can't talk about it. They feel awkward. They feel as if they don't have the privilege or the voice or the words. How do you find yourself right now in terms of interacting with people when they want to talk to you about social injustice, police brutality, what's going on in this country right now?
Well, first of all, picking and choosing whether you want to be silent or not about race, that's a privilege in and of itself. But no, I mean, I try to just do my best to listen to the Black people around me and the educated Black people I have in my life. So I do my best to not act like I have all the answers for everything, especially in a culture that I'm not from. But that's why when we decided to raise the money for Black Lives Matter organizations, we, when we raised 500,000, we got on the phone with some of the women who started Black Lives Matter. I got on the phone with Tamika Mallory. I was on the phone with Karen Civil and talking with my friends to make sure the money went to like the correct places, and people who really need it. It's just about listening. That's all. It's about listening.
Let's talk about that for a moment, because the way I think of activism, for me, it looks very differently. It's not necessarily just protesting on the front lines. I think that's great. But what about being an activist in the way in which you have decided to be one? What inspired you? What did it look like? You said you raised money for Black Lives Matter. What did you do? Mm-hmm. Walk us through everything that you did and how you find yourself in this moment right now.
So for me, it was 3 years ago. I had like a string of festivals, and I decided that I was going to wear T-shirts with a message on them because I figured, what better, what better time to use a platform than in front of a bunch of people. So one of the T-shirts I wore was, "If you want to change the system, speak up. White silence is pro racism. The whole thing." And it didn't really it kind of got swept under the rug back then. But when all this stuff started happening again, and it's been happening, the police brutality against innocent black people, I was like, man, I'm not the biggest artist in the world, and I certainly don't have the most white fans in the world, but I got a good amount of people that I can definitely mobilize and turn into some money. And I know they're down for the cause because it's merch, it's a good thing. And I've always been outspoken anyway, And so, how am I going to be in black culture and not be outspoken about racism?
And then I got to ask you this, because you grew up in Atlanta, so that gives you a heads up, depending for so many people, because you're in the crux of that beautiful black city where there are so many wonderful black leaders, home of so much great music. Now, and we are really, really getting our word out, especially with this platform today, and saying that we must use our voice to vote. Talk to me about what the importance of voting for you in this upcoming election.
Yeah, so full transparency, I had never voted before, ever. And because I was one of those people who was like, my vote doesn't matter, and I don't know, maybe it's because I was younger, maybe it's because I really thought that, or I don't know, but I just think that it's got to, now this is a bit of a privilege to say it's got to a breaking point for me, because obviously it's been past the breaking point for black people, but I think that as a whole, the young people need to get out and vote, because we're the ones that never show up. You know what I mean? We never show up to vote, but we're the future. So it's like, look, we got to go out there and vote, and then whatever happens, but at least we did our part. You got to do your part.
You're very candid in saying that you just decided to vote, and I think there's a beautiful irony in the fact that you have your fans saying, because of you, I'm voting. Right. And there's something beautiful about that. But I want to know why now for you. Why in this moment is it important for you to vote? And what hit your spirit to say, yes, this is the time to do it?
Honestly, because I think that George Floyd really woke up a lot of people who, including myself, who I was vocal and outspoken about racism. I put it in my lyrics. I put it on T-shirts. I would talk about it in interviews. I was vocal about it. But that video in that moment, I think me, along with a lot of other people, just kind of was like, all right, like, words are simply not enough anymore. We got to do something, whether it's raising money, whether it's voting, or all the above. Like, we got to do something, and I'm ashamed that it took that for me to be like, I need to raise money and I need to vote. It's a shame. And I don't know, I guess it snapped a bunch of people out of it, and even if you were vocal and whatnot, it's time to actually put your money where your mouth is. It's time to go vote. It's time to just stop talking about it and be about it, and it's been time for that. But like I said, I'm ashamed that it took me this long to actually really, really be about it. But I'm here now.
So Russ, we all know that this is going to be your first time voting. Tell me what that experience is going to be like for you in terms of what you're excited about.
I think what it's going to do for me. It's going to let me know that I'm contributing to something bigger than myself, and I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm being about it. Because for so long, and I know I'm not alone with this, but standing on the outside and just screaming about this and that and this should change, and it's like, all right, but did you vote? And so I know it's gonna feel good to know that I played a small role, and that's the problem. I think the mentality of like, my vote doesn't matter needs to be changed to, my vote, albeit small, does matter. It's a role I'm playing, and if I play my part and you play your part and he and she plays their part, then we make a difference. But it'll feel, I have a feeling it's gonna feel very, very bigger than me. I think when you when you realize that giving uh, actually feels better than receiving, that's when you start wanting to do your part and contribute. So voting is an easy way to give, you know.
Yeah. To whom much is given, much is required, and you have been given a huge platform, and we are so grateful for you, Russ. Philanthropist, artist, community activist, first time voter. We appreciate you for doing
Yes.
this, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, la la.
So, cities like Atlanta and Chicago have been at the forefront of the discussions, especially now in this country when we're talking about COVID-19 and systemic racism, as well as police brutality and what we can do in this country. Again, we're continuing our conversation, letting you know that your voice is your vote and your vote is your voice. We can change where we are in this country. Currently, I'd like to welcome in Chicago Cubs right fielder Jason Hayward. I appreciate you. I brought in Atlanta and Chicago because I know you grew up in the metropolitan area of Atlanta, more specifically McDonough. Let's be technical, and and you have been very vocal throughout this entire time in terms of what our country's been experiencing. Let's look at the past month and a half, if you will. What has been the hardest thing for you to deal with?
The hardest thing for me to deal with, Carrie, this last month has just been going from the virus shutting everything down to us being called to action. We've had multiple police brutality situations. We've had people protesting, wanting to get the message out. But I really realized that I need to be a part of the positive message and make sure that doesn't get lost in all the chaos going on for people to actually hear from a reasonable, respectable person who cares about everyone involved.
A reasonable, respectable person who cares about everyone involved, which leads us to More Than a Vote. It is a beautiful collective of Black athletes and artists. You are a part of that. Talk to me about why that's important for you right now, and this be a part of that collective.
To me personally, it's important to be a part of that because I've somewhat used baseball and my craft as an excuse to not get more involved in voting. But I can't any longer use baseball and work as an excuse not to get educated and not also to show people like at any moment in time, any walk of life, we can make a difference.
So tell me in your words, what does activism look like for you?
In my words, it looks like LeBron James, the biggest athlete right now on the planet, speaking up and breaking the ice for everyone. But I think for the first time, people see and hear from us. So now we have white teammates, we have other people speaking up and realizing, okay, like this is how we go about doing this. And to me, right now, social media, athletes speaking up, entertainers speaking up, like we're trying to do with More Than a Vote.
You said something I thought was so key because covering sports for so long, I know that it's tough for Black players specifically in Major League Baseball to talk about how they feel. Adam Jones did it in a very eloquent way early on, but there are very few that are vocal. You said you all were afraid. Why use that word and why were you afraid?
You was afraid because in 2019, there were 68 of us total. And there are 38 teams. There's 25-man roster on each team. There's a 40-man roster, which is on each team as well. And there aren't many of us. So we're outnumbered in that sense, but not always in a negative way when it comes to our teammates and our clubhouses. But to get to this point, you have to move a certain way. You got to be careful what you say. You can't ruffle feathers. You can't come off in any way. Much like other Black entertainers, much like yourself, probably having to live through life every day. But to get to the highest level, you got to button up. You got to be seen and not heard. So baseball is, like I said, it was time for us to try and speak up and make a difference and show it's okay to do so because we can't be quiet any longer.
That is a button up, be quiet, be seen but not heard. That is an expression that a lot of Black folks can relate to in whatever aspect of professionalism that they experience, especially if they don't work for themselves. They just feel that. That is also a socialization that we have as Black folks, well, especially like you said, if you want to get to the higher level. And for so long, I felt it bubbling right underneath the surface that so many of us who were in whatever positions we were, who had platforms, were tired of pretending and looking the other way and spending so much time making others comfortable while we were uncomfortable. Do you feel that this is the type of movement that is sustainable, or is it just for a time?
No, it takes everyone joining in on the conversation. And right now, I feel like more than ever, there is little things as possible to distract from bigger issue. And we saw on draft day, we saw our president Theo Epstein holding up the sign saying Black Lives Matter and wanting to
Yeah,
include the rest
yeah.
of MLB in that. But now we're having those conversations as well. So I definitely think this is sustainable, and it's not always just going to be the popular thing to do. This is something that people want to get right because they know we care.
Jason, you said you think it's sustainable, that what you're seeing, especially with your colleagues in baseball, that this can be something where you're feeling more comfortable, feeling more safe to share how you feel about social injustice and police brutality. What are you doing right now in this moment with your platform to help change how we look at voting and how to educate the culture and the community about voting?
Well, first, what I'm doing, Carrie, is joining up with More Than a Vote and joining up with other athletes and entertainers to get that message out and use our platform in that sense as a group. And try to create a brand with this to make it something that's not just about the election coming, make sure that it's about people getting educated for years to come and figure out where to vote and how to vote. We've got people in different areas that cover different demographics and influence different areas of people. And as a baseball player, as a Black baseball player, I feel like now, like we talked about, is finding the time to show people that you can use your voice in this profession. You don't have to be afraid. And to me, that can help help a kid growing up. He can see me, he can see other guys that were in the video we posted saying, hey, this is what they're standing for. They're speaking up for these things, and it's okay to want to play baseball. It's not lame. It's not something I have to be as afraid of as I was before. So I feel like that's my role in this. I have a younger brother as well. He's 24. He also plays baseball. So I've got to lead by example. I can't just always, come up with a good answer that sounds good on TV. When I get asked a question on, what do we need to do to make changes? I'm joining up here to make sure that I take action and get educated myself. For one, so many people, I feel like in Atlanta, they're on the move. Or when you want to try to make a vote and try and cast your vote, you have to do it by mail. You have to sign up for the absentee ballot. Then you have to get another ballot in return. They have to send it back to you. Well, for me personally, they didn't send that back until it was too late, right? We didn't get it in the mail to the address that's an Atlanta address at my parents' house. We didn't get that in the mail until it was too late. And then from other friends and family that are still in Georgia right now, I just hear about them being held in lines too long and trying to get off work. And we know how it is for any family, but let alone a Black family in a city or in the suburbs trying to take care of their family and trying to provide for them. You try to get off work, and then you're like, wait a minute. You start looking at the clock. It's like, oh, this is not going to happen today, right? And so I saw, Mayor Keisha Bottoms, reach out via social media to people and say, hey, I'm going to address these issues right now. I need y'all to stay in line to cast your votes. Keep hanging in there. So to me in Georgia, that's what that looks like.
Well, it's interesting that you even bring that up because there have been all these images specifically from Georgia, because that's such a battleground, where you see people, especially when it came to the primaries, doing whatever it takes. And this is real life voter suppression that you're talking about. It's been happening for decades. It's not fake. What you're saying, these examples of sending you your ballot too late after the fact or shutting down the polls at 6 o'clock while people still are in line, that's a real life issue. There needs to be some type of change. And I think that what we're doing right now is fair. But the idea of voter suppression, do you think that is well known, especially with folks, within the generation, your generation?
I think it's known in our communities, right? I don't think it's spoke on enough. I don't think there's been enough light drawn to it. Bring it to light. Let people hear about it. Let people learn about what that looks like. And get more people to say, okay, look, like this is going to happen. We have to expect this, and we can no longer make the excuse. We can't say they didn't warn us.
Jason, everybody knows, or it feels as if everyone knows, that the time is now. America's paying attention to us. We have their eyes. We have their ears. If you look toward the future, what are you most excited about in terms of seeing a change?
I'm excited about how fast the word is traveling. The word is being spread right now. The biggest athletes, the biggest icons, biggest entertainers are doing their part, but I'm also seeing people out there on the streets doing their part. When so many things got lost, could have very easily got in the commotion when it came to protests, and you saw rioting, you saw looting. People still stood their ground, and people still went out there and said, look, we're doing this for the right reasons. We're going to come together. We're going to use drones. We're going to use social medias. I feel like this is a new wave of getting things done the right way and just spreading the message.
You're right about that. And you're right. People are spreading the word unapologetically. We out here. We doubling down. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Right.
Yeah, la la.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited to welcome a friend, a brother, family member, if you will, former colleague, NBA great, sports analyst, philanthropist. He does it all. And he's here to give us his time and his platform to talk about something that is so important. That is voting. Everybody, welcome Jalen Rose to We the People. Talk to me about how important it is for the people who know you and love you and look up to you. Why is it so important that you use your platform to talk about voting?
Initially, we have to get past the stigma of the mental systemic racism that comes with the presidential race, governors, mayors, senators, judges. We've been conditioned to believe that our vote does not matter. So usually when we looked up at all of those races and people that were running, not only did they not look like us, we didn't believe they were there to represent our best interests. So therefore, as a collective, we didn't mobilize until Barack Obama, and we felt a sense of hope that finally our country is going to do something that we felt would never happen in our lifetime. And I remember being at the inauguration in we didn't vote, Carrie. We didn't vote. And so many people try to make this political. This is not political. Me telling somebody to vote is like telling somebody to pay taxes. So that's one, getting over the stigma of nobody is going to represent our best interest. And then number two, the reality is that the person that gets the most votes doesn't necessarily win the presidency. That's uncomfortable right there because that's actually what took place in 2016. The Electoral College chose the president. And if you put all of their pictures up, I'm pretty sure they look a lot more like each other than they look like you and I. How about that? And then the third thing, especially in urban environments, oh man, they create barriers for us, Carrie. It's like you got to jump over the fence, you got to run past the dog, you got to jump on the hood of the car. The lines is 5 hours long. You get up to the poll and they don't work. Elderly people working in the city while they got the young